Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Betska, the Guru Coach, together with Raj Vashisht, co-host. And doesn't he look handsome today in his blue outfit and shining hair, colorful hair?
Blue.
Yeah, blue. Even our guest is blue
Blue.
today, a blue-green. Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. Today, we are continuing our discussion on animal communication, but we want to go deeper into this. And our guest is Paloma Baertschi. And just before I read her bio, I want you to know she told us a story when we were off camera that Keanu Reeves, who is a famous actor, has many expensive cars, and he sold them all, and he made something like $100 million from these cars. And he's opening the biggest, or one of the biggest, animal shelters in the world. And it's going to have everything for the animals. Like it'll be a wellness place. The animals will be really well looked after. So I opened with this because it is such a joy to see people that wealthy open their hearts to take care of the animal people. I've said before, in some countries, I've been to close to 30 countries, and some of the countries I go to, the animals are really suffering. So, and then others, they're really well looked after. So our wish, our prayer is that all animals will be safe and happy. So, Paloma, I asked her what made her unique, and this is what she said. She said, I don't just communicate with animals. I teach people to expand their consciousness so they can experience true connection beyond words. Wow. My work goes far beyond behavior or emotion. It touches the essence of being. Touches the essence of being. Through thousands of conversations with animals. Are you hearing this, folks? She's had thousands of communications with animals, conversations. I've learned that they are not here to be understood by us. They are here to remind us who we really are. Wow. How cool is that? So I'm sure just that introduction alone, that piece would encourage us all to learn how to communicate. And Paloma is going to give us some tips here today, but let me tell you more about her. She is a renowned animal communicator. She lives in Switzerland. Over 2 decades of experience empowering humans and animals to understand each other on a deeper level, with heartfelt empathy and a unique ability to translate the unspoken. She has guided thousands of people worldwide to discover what their animal companions truly feel and need. She's been a passionate teacher for over 20 years, and she inspires others to awaken their own intuitive connection. Her wisdom and presence bring clarity, compassion, and a touch of magic to every conversation. I read so welcome, Paloma. So nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
I saw this in the paper somewhere. It was a person with some animal people, and the underlying note of the comic or whatever it was said, if animals could talk, we would never eat them.
True. But they can talk.
Yes, they can talk if we're willing to listen. And that's why you're here today, to teach us a little bit more about that. Now, Paloma runs her own school for teaching people how to communicate with animals, but she's going to give us some tips here today. So let's hook up for the ride here. I think it's going to be phenomenal. So Paloma, why is it often harder for people to communicate with their own animals? I'm assuming pets, for example. Why is it often harder? Tell us.
Well, usually when you have an animal with you, when you live with an animal or the animal lives with you, you have a certain idea of, why the dog or the cat does something. And so you make up your own story. We make up our stories. So
Right.
not just in our own lives, we make up our stories. We make up our stories also around our animal companions.
Mm.
And then once we've made up our story, then it's very difficult to actually let go of that story.
True. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then obviously then you don't hear what the animal is trying to tell you.
Hmm. Especially if you don't think that they are trying to communicate with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
A lot of
exactly.
people have no idea that animals
Yes.
can actually communicate. So it's a fairly new thing. I want to share a story. This last week, I woke up and I lowered the blinds in our kitchen, and across from our kitchen is this magnificent pond garden. It's absolutely glorious with this enormous willow tree, and the spring flowers are just sensational right now. But when I looked up to the top of the willow tree, there were six massive doves, or in some countries they call them pigeons. Like, we're talking big, right? The ones with they have a white ring around their neck, and I'm staring at these doves and I'm thinking, why are you here? And then later I was able to connect with them on why they had come. But that's just another piece of people just being aware that animals are trying to give us a message, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to learn how to listen and to, I mean, it was just so extraordinary to see six of them. They covered the tree and they're so big, right? So paying attention to the pets and to the wild animal people too, I think is really a good thing for us to aspire to. So when I was looking at those doves, I could have, and listening to what they were trying to tell me, uh, some people would say, "Oh, Betska, you were just imagining things." So why do people think that they are just imagining things? It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't believe their instincts, they don't believe in their intuition.
Yeah.
And obviously, then we have our mind that comes in, maybe we have a feeling, an intuition, and then all of a sudden the mind kicks in and says, oh, that's total nonsense. That can't be true. You're imagining that. And it's
Yeah.
actually the mind that gets in our way. This is why it is so important to have our brain-heart coherence. So our mind needs to be aligned with the heart so that it doesn't sort of,
Yeah.
tells the heart that's nonsense.
Yeah. And I was just thinking it would be if more people develop that heart mind connection with animal people, then it would expand their ability to do the same with humans.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So now, how can someone tell the difference between real animal communication and imagination? What's how can someone, because someone might think, oh, it's crazy. I'm not hearing what my pet is trying to say.
Yeah. Well, there is a trick or there is a technique that I teach people that want to start to communicate with animals. And they say, well, I'm not sure if I'm imagining that or not. So what I tell them is before you connect with your animal and before you ask the question, write down what you would expect as an answer. Just
Oh, interesting. Okay.
write it down in your own words. What would you expect it as an answer? What would the answer be? And then once you have written that down, then you connect with your animal, then you ask the question, and then you see what you get. If you get the exact same thing that you wrote down, well, then it's obvious. It's your imagination. However, if what you've wrote down goes in the right direction, the animal will tell you the same thing in another way. Or the animal might tell you something completely different.
Yeah.
So that way you can sort of, write down your imagination, write down what you think would be the answer. Then, only then, you connect with the animal and you ask the question and you see what you get.
So that makes me ask the question, and maybe we need to take your course to figure this out, but how do you connect with the animal? So that, I mean, do you imagine your hearts are connected, or what do you do?
Well, I teach something that I call the solar plexus exercise. And this is sort of you center yourself.
Okay.
And to do that is, so you close your eyes and you let a picture pop up with that you feel comfortable with that picture. So you don't imagine a picture with which you feel comfortable, but you let a picture pop up with which you feel comfortable. That's the difference.
Right.
So
Big difference, yeah.
So it really, you close your eyes and you sort of ask for a picture that you feel comfortable with. And then once you have the picture in front of your mental eye, in front of your third eye, then you actually put it into your solar plexus. So you put that picture in your solar plexus. And if you feel comfortable with that picture in your solar plexus, then it's the right picture. If you don't feel right with that picture in your solar plexus, then it's the wrong picture and you have to let pop up another picture. But usually, then if you feel comfortable with that picture in your solar plexus, then you imagine some doors or a light switch in your solar plexus, and then you switch off on the light and let the light go out of your solar plexus, connect to the animal that you want to talk to. And then when you feel that connection, then you can have the conversation. And then after you have had the conversation, maybe it's just one question. And by the way, that can happen very easily. Then you make the connection, ask a question, then you get an answer, get so excited that you have received an answer that you lose the connection.
I'm sure.
And then and then you have to make the connection again. So that used to happen to me every time I communicated with an animal. I got so excited. Oh my God, I've got an answer. And then when I wanted to ask the second question, the connection wasn't there anymore. So I had to reestablish the connection.
Right.
So anyway, you ask the questions, or the question, and then when you have the answer, then you thank the animal and say goodbye, and then you'd actually take back the light and you look for that picture with which you felt comfortable. If it's still there, great. If it's gone, you reestablish it. If it has lost color, then you put the color back in, if it had color. Like you reestablish the picture, and only then you switch off the light or close the doors. So that's basically that connection that you can do with the animal. And there are other techniques, obviously. That's just one. That's the one I teach.
Right. So it's actually starting in the wisdom eye, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's starting in the wisdom eye. You're seeing that image in the wisdom eye and then taking it down to the solar plexus. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right on. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that you just let a picture pop up and don't think about a picture, because if you
Yeah.
think about the picture, you're in your head, and that's not
Yes.
where you want to be.
No, exactly. So, I'm curious, all these thousands of communications you've had, the conversations you've had with animal people, what impact has it had on their caregivers? What information has come forward from the animal person to the caregiver? Like, how has it helped the human? Like, I'm sure you have a million stories. I'd really like to know.
I have thousands of stories. Yeah, really. But what has impacted me the most is when animals talk about the children in the family.
Oh, wow.
Because I usually don't know that there are children.
Mm.
So, but then, when the caregiver says, "Does the animal have something to tell me?" And so I ask the animal, and the animal starts to talk about the children. And then, first of all, I have to ask, "Do you have children?"
Yeah.
And then they say, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how old are they?" And then they tell me their age. And then the animal goes on telling me, maybe, yeah, this and this child, well, it's about this and this child. And because the animal tells me the age, so then, I ask for the age, and then they say, well, and then I say, oh, yeah, there is a match. Okay, so it's about that child, you know.
Yeah.
And so they tell me things like, yeah, you have to um, um, maybe talk to the child about school. They're not telling you everything that is happening in school. I remember once that they told
Ooh.
me about that. And I go like, oh, that's interesting. And then the person, the caregiver said, "Yeah, actually, yeah, he doesn't really talk a lot about school. And yeah, maybe I should ask him more about it, and things like that."
Yeah.
And that's very, very interesting. And then,
Mm.
one person once told me, well, my son actually has ADHD. And I go like, oh, okay. Um, don't get me started on that. And
Yeah.
then the animal actually gave some really good tips on how to, yeah, handle that situation, which was also very interesting.
Yeah. Yesterday I was working with a client, a human, and he had he had a huge pigeon in his yard, and for some reason he just felt he needed to communicate with that pigeon. And I was kind of shocked because the pigeon actually gave him heck. He was yelling at at my client, like, humans are stupid. Why don't you hear it? Blah blah blah. He went on. I went, oh my god. I was kind of shocked as to what he was. The pigeon just understood what was going on so well, but the human was blocked on it.
And the pigeon
And
didn't understand why the human didn't understand.
yeah, you know.
Mm.
So anyway, um, that was really interesting. Have any of your conversations talked about um, like couple relationships and what they could do to improve communication in their relationships or anything like that? I'm sure, right?
Yeah, well, I had a conversation with a cat. I'll never forget it. It was one of my first conversations I had 25 years ago. And
Wow.
and this woman asked the cat about, do you want to tell me something more? And the cat said, uh, don't let yourself be pushed around like, you are.
Yeah.
And this woman went quiet and said, well, I'm actually in a toxic relationship. And I was like, oh, and he is violent. And I go like,
Ooh.
oh. And then the cat tells me I can tell her how to get out of it. And I go like, no,
No
no, no,
way.
no, no, no. Not taking that responsibility. And then the cat starts to tell me what the house looks like.
Oh my goodness.
And I tell the woman what the house looks like. And she goes like, yeah, that's right. But why are you telling me that? And I go like, oh, well, because the cat actually wanted me to tell you so that I see that I get what he tells me. Because he actually
Ah,
told me that he can tell you through me how to get out of that toxic relationship.
right.
And then she was quiet for a few seconds and then she goes like, I want to know. I'm going, oh my goodness me, what am I getting myself into? And so it was so interesting because we had different communications over a period of 2 or 3 months where the cat was telling the woman step by step, very easy, very, very softly and very small little steps that she had to do in order to get out of that relationship. And she
Wow.
eventually went out, left that relationship, that toxic relationship. Nobody got hurt, nobody got injured or anything, like, yeah, everything
Wow.
went really well. But
Well, what a
I'll never
blessing.
forget that.
I guess so. What a blessing. Well, clearly the universe had conspired for you and the cat and the pet caregiver to come together to maybe even save her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
But I mean, that was, yeah, maybe because as I said, this guy was violent and she was afraid of him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Well, folks, this was part one of conversation with Paloma on animal communication. Stay tuned. We'll be right back for part two.